Opinion Operation Sindoors lesson assertiveness is just step 1 for a Viksit Bharat war scenarios, as elucidated in the previous part, have remained viable. However, there is a paradigm shift towards terrorist attacks and dousing the fire tactics being employed by Pakistan, limiting the window of opportunity for Bharat, while allowing it to raise the stakes for Pakistan. In recent times, the scale of skirmishes with Pakistan has reduced, and we now mostly witness an active line of control. Pakistan's attempts, though diminished, persist in conducting terrorist attacks and furthering its nefarious plans of Islamist jihad in the heartland of Bharat, albeit through misinformation and propaganda fueling such dastardly endeavors. The smart fence along the LOC has greatly hampered Pakistan's terror designs. Its increasing reliance on overground workers, OGWs and sleeper cells has, in a way, worked to our advantage, as Bharat continues to eliminate these hidden terrorists and hunt them down. The typical pattern from letting attacks happen, to striking back tactically, to eventually engaging in dialogue under pressure from global opinion has now shifted. We have developed adequate punitive responses for Pakistan, as seen after the Uri attack through surgical strikes, post-Pulwama air operations, and now during Operation Sindoor. In all three instances, Bharat targeted terror camps and infrastructure in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir Pak, but Operation Sindoor went further, striking terrorist headquarters in mainland Pakistan. The propensity and immunity with which these strikes were conducted demonstrate a range of mechanisms available to inflict damage with precision and restraint, minimizing collateral damage while earning global appreciation. With each such strike, the lethality, precision, and psychological toll on Pakistan have increased, raising serious questions around red lines, nuclear intent and capability, and the escalation lateral tools of tantrum Pakistan had previously used to deter Bharat from taking such actions. Had Operation Sindoor continued for another 2 or 3 days beyond May 10, 2025, it is likely Pakistan would have been severely crippled, facing deeper restraint from global powers. One can never be sure when enough is enough, but this time, in the aftermath of the Pahalgam terrorist attack, Pakistan was saved due to a leak, which embarrassed its funders and suppliers alike. Given the narration thus far, it is evident that we have evolved as a nation in our resolve to punish Pakistan for its terrorism and misadventures. We are now better prepared to take punitive action, and much of global opinion stands with us. However, we still face a handicap in perception warfare. Bharat's growth invites envy, and some global actors continue to sustain the Pakistani proxy they once created, arming and supporting terror networks that mushroomed from its soil. Only now is the snake they nurtured beginning to bite the world at large. Are we truly superior to Pakistan? Have we fully neutralized terrorism emanating from its territory? Do we possess conventional military superiority? Will those who use Pakistan as a proxy arm it further against Bharat? Can we count on the USA and China as friends? Can the European Union be trusted blindly, who are our all-weather allies with whom we can co-develop better military hardware and software? Will Pakistan resort to nuclear weapons, and what can we do in such a case? How much can our economy sustain in the event of a war? Are we truly invincible against Pakistan? There are many lingering questions, and much cannot be answered in black and white, as probabilities and scenarios are multiply and in some cases, mutually exclusive. However, the last question above does have a definite answer, and that is a firm no. And since that emphatic no exists, we need to introspect and carve a pathway to strengthen our national power for the future. What are our deficiencies, lacunae, and gaps? One can write about them separately. But given the highlights we have already examined in this paper across the 3 scenarios and feasible actions during terrorist strikes, particularly in the context of declarations made by Bharat during Operation Sindoor, such as that no first use is not mandatory, and that any terrorist attack or proxy war will be construed as an act of war, Bharat has significant latitude to respond and at its discretion. Bharat is 2 decades behind China in military preparedness and is not adequately poised for a 2 or 3 front war, despite such scenarios being increasingly plausible. Given the wide range of terrain conditions in which we must operate, especially for ground forces, we need to develop the following capability. As and Pakistan possesses nuclear capabilities and is willing to employ tactical nuclear weapons. To match and deter this threat effectively, Bharat needs mechanized forces capable of transporting troops safely into battle under nuclear threat conditions. Failure to achieve this may eventually lead to disaster in a future conventional conflict, an outcome we have so far managed to avoid, and deter our enemies from initiating. However, by the next decade or so, that strategic advantage may erode, especially as Pakistan's armed forces receive a fresh infusion of modern weapon systems, whether through proxies or directly from countries such as the USA and China, among others. B. Perception warfare. For a long time, we have been shy of creating assets that are useful not only for perception management but also have the capability to network and interact globally to gain better and faster intelligence. Bharat must work on a holistic perception warfare department under HQ integrated defense staff with elements of military, cyber experts, internal security agencies, PMF, intelligence agencies, MAA with its embassies across the world, industry, polity, media, diaspora, ISRO, and TRO, veterans from diverse fields as needed, friendly foreign countries on laid down terms, etc. Reviving the Technical Support Division TSD, or a similar organization, and not being politically correct about it, should be a stance. This will be beneficial to create assets, conduct covert operations, curb and preempt terrorist activities, including targeting terrorists and their handlers deep inside enemy territories, and more unconventional tasks, as necessary. Striking the enemy and eliminating leadership must be an ongoing process, and that calls for specialization without interference, albeit with due checks and reporting to the highest offices, as needed. In Pakistan, we have a failed state that thrives on extreme Islamist ideology, and to defeat such a country, it needs more and constant degradation of its intent and breaking it into pieces, such that constant turmoil grips it within and along other borders too. We also need to cleanse within the anti-national algae that grows and mushrooms with support from foreign inimicals. We must create avenues to support teams and groups operating in Bharat and abroad financially, such that we are able to reach out to think tanks, world bodies and agencies, and people who matter, to influence events and post events too. Funding a group of diaspora in the UK, USA, Canada, etc. will be useful in the long run. C. Developing national fiber and fortitude. Bharat, as we know it today, is fragmented with shades of citizens, ranging from nationalists to wokes to anti-nationals. While the first and the last are discernible and can be acted upon with firmness, the woke need special attention, as most are from the current generation of teenagers up to those in their 30s who have been fed with a version of history that doesn't build enough pride, and where Western influences have been subtly infused through many aspects. Our education system, as such, needs major refinement and changes, and unless that is done, we are on a time curve of doomsday. So far as moral and nationalistic fiber is concerned, our nation also needs to develop fortitude in difficult times and be able to appreciate the intentions of enemies, their tactics, media negativity, and the influence of agencies and institutions, including educational ones, and even comments made by other governments. One can appreciate the grooming of a young Israeli and their fortitude to return from safer places like the USA, etc., to fight and contribute in an armed conflict in Gaza, post the 710 attacks on their soil by Hamas. A nation has to be made strong internally, and that takes generations, but weakening it takes just a few decades. The Gurukul system was effective as it trained scholar warriors and nationalists, and our modern syllabus needs to be ingrained with teachings that foster national pride and commitment. D. Pathway of Atmanirbhar Bharat. It is an absolutely critical necessity that we promote and produce weapons and fighting support systems in Bharat. At best, we should have co-development cases with friendly countries. Only Russia and Israel, to reiterate, are the ones we must trust. All imports through COTS commercial off-the-shelf procurement should be minimal and strictly stipulated for manufacturing in Bharat within a specific time frame, such that we force ourselves to develop a competitive technological edge in that domain at the earliest. IDEX and similar platforms need to be adequately funded to enable proper scale-ups, without these companies getting funded by foreign entities. Allied industries that support military hardware, software, and related products must also be indigenous. Curating geographical advantage. In many places, especially along the Lok, we are at a position of disadvantage. Given the fact that we have a right to our territories in Pak, and also that Pakistan has recently suspended the Shimla Agreement, we need to have a role and plan to nibble territories, with a view to improving our defensive posture along the LOC. These sporadic to limited offensive actions during the year will serve as a caution to Pakistan and reduce infiltration attempts, as some calculated aggression is carried out across the LOC by Bharat. Encourage diversified population growth in Kashmir. Kashmir has been the focal point of Pakistan's funding, terrorism, and more under the garb of Islamic Caliphate and its own misplaced claims of sovereignty. Kashmir is an integral part of Bharat, and the exodus of Kashmiri pundits remains a blot on the then government and military leadership, which let mayhem prevail. It is time to undo that error and ensure that people and businesses move into Kashmir so that the population becomes more heterogeneous. With a bounty of minerals and rare earths, it is incumbent upon Bharat to ensure that normalcy in Kashmir is such that the cost of meddling there for Pakistan is equivalent to striking New Delhi. Therefore, state a plan and stick to it irrespective of which political party governs Delhi or Srinagar. Do not let Pakistan see Kashmir as a demography that suits its ideological battles. G. Economic surge with security. Nothing else matters in the 21st century. Bharat is on a pathway of transition from a developing to a developed nation, and the call for Viksit Bharat by 2047 by the Prime Minister mandates a relentless economic growth curve, with all dimensions of security aligned to support that enviable progress. Development in infrastructure, healthcare, education, energy, defense, enabling technologies, and more is critical to sustain the needs and aspirations of 1.4 billion plus, who will likely grow to 1.85 billion by 2070, a timeline by which Bharat intends to become a net zero country. All of this requires high investments, best practices, collaborations, and strategic choices. Bharat must make the right partnerships with friendly countries and lead the conversation on investments. At the same time, rivals like Pakistan, and envious China, and others will count and attempt to slow Bharat down. Bharat must optimize its internal economy and generate funds domestically to support growth and better standards of living for its citizens. Ignoring minor skirmishes unless absolutely necessary for escalation should be the norm. Punitive actions must be brief, effective, and well communicated to limit enemy countermeasures. Societal stability and national ideology. Frequent infighting and political bickering have devastated Bharat since the Mughal invasions and British rule, where divide and rule policies prevailed. Even today, petty politics continues to divide Bharat on caste, language, income, and more, ushering in asymptotic cliché copyrights, weakening the societal fabric, and even deriding Bharat abroad, as we have seen with politicians who hold responsible positions and are privy to sensitive information. We must observe the declining fabric of societies like the UK and USA, where wokeism has stripped them of their values, and the edifice of their governance has been weakened. Bharat has rich civilizational roots, but their deterioration in recent decades has been alarming. The current generations have not contributed enough towards its revival. We need to push a restart button for our education system and its ingrained philosophy such that we preserve the best from our past, suitably enabled by the virtues of the present, especially in technology and future sciences. We must build a national ideology that is overwhelming and empowering for future citizens, and the diaspora. Institutions like RSS can do more in the service of Bharat and help bring together like-minded individuals who can shape and steer the course for a better, bolder, and beautiful Bharat. Leadership through acumen. Bharat must create systems within systems that support a long-term vision of prosperity and peace defined by clear targets and enforced where necessary. While the basic polity is based on elections and bureaucracy is run by Qatar, there is a strong case, just like RSS benefits from the advice of luminaries, that the government must build attached structures to bring in experts, and fill the Rajya Sabha with citizens who will work more and enjoy privileges less. The experiment of appointing joint secretaries from the private sector under Team Modi proved successful, with significant contributions made in the ministries where they served. We must extend this idea and introduce more lateral leadership, even up to the level of secretaries. The cushy, assured promotion and growth enjoyed by the bureaucracy must come to an end. We must promote excellence from the vast pool of citizens, including veterans from diverse fields. No public sector organization guarantees promotions and growth like the IAS Qatar. While politicians must fight elections and other institutions advance through merit, IAS operates by its own benchmark that must be dismantled and replaced with a new one soon. Make military elite and wanted. A nation is only as strong and resilient as its military. In Bharat, the status of the military has been constantly downgraded, and the parity with other services like the IAS and IPS is rather humiliating. The warrant of precedence only adds to the agony. Gone are the days when the military was schooled to ignore small things in the belief that it had a larger role to play. The attraction of youth towards military service has declined, and the shortage of officers tells its own story. It is quite disheartening to see a lieutenant general salute and call sir someone who is 25% or junior in service and stature, while even an MLA believes himself to be larger than a corps commander. This anomaly, which is well known and well established, must be corrected soon, and no compromise should be acceptable to the polity. Operation Sindoor is also an example of how sluggishness sets in during decision-making, and how military commanders often appear to be mere pawns within the larger national structure. Since the time of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and without exception, the respect and remuneration afforded to the soldier has been craftily degraded by the bureaucracy, with the polity consenting to this erosion. It seems that, over the decades since independence, the bureaucracy including IAS and IPS has usurped power by staying close to the polity, while the soldier who defends the nation has slowly become a stranger in town. Bharat now stands at the cusp of becoming a developed nation, powerful across all dimensions of national power, and Operation Sindoor signals where we ought to be militarily. But truth be told, we are still far from where we need to be in terms of military capacities. As a nation with the aspirations and dreams of 1.4 billion citizens, we cannot afford to be second best militarily, not as the largest democracy on earth. We must collectively envision a stronger and surer Bharat and do more for our nation, our Bharat. Swipe left for next video. Hi Hind, Nan Colonel Rohit Dev, a second-generation army officer, is an adjunct professor at the Rashtriya Raksha University, a geopolitical analyst and a primetime TV personality. Views expressed in the above piece are personal and solely those of the author. They do not necessarily reflect News 18's views. Latest blogs.